You never get a second chance at a first impression. Everyone knows that. It's why you dress up for a job interview, it's why companies spend millions on launch campaigns, and it's why your reputation, in life and in fiction, depends on the way you enter the room. In storytelling, that entrance is everything. The first time a character appears on the page or screen defines how we see them for the rest of the story. Get it wrong and your character might as well be invisible. We've all been there, reading or watching something, and suddenly the plot shines a light on a random name we barely remember. If there's one medium that's mastered the art of unforgettable entrances, I'd say it's manga. The over-the-top nature of the genre, combined with Japan's brutal creative competition, has forged a kind of narrative natural selection. In this ecosystem, only the most striking characters survive. Every mangaka knows this. The first scene has to hit hard. Time and time again, I'm amazed by the ways these authors introduce their characters. An entrance so bold it demands attention, a gesture that defines everything, a moment that burns itself into your memory. Each series has its own style and method, of course, but if I had to point to one story that perfects the art of the character introduction, it's gotta be Chainsaw Man. From the moment its characters appear, they're seared into your brain. Denji, Makima, even Kobeni for some reason, each one explodes onto the page in a way that tells you exactly who they are long before you know their name. But what makes Chainsaw Man's introduction so magnetic when it has to introduce so many characters? The pacing is breakneck speed, and the designs are usually quite simple. Well, I'll tell you how. The answer lies in something I like to call the explosion factor. First of all, what exactly does the explosion factor mean? Well, let's take a look at the technical definition of an explosion. It is a violent expansion in which energy is transmitted outward as a shock wave. In the context of stories, I'd describe explosions as a burst of emotion, energy, or a contradiction. It's a transformation from a benign state into something uncontrollable. I've pinpointed 3 case studies in Chainsaw Man that each present a unique character explosion, and the first one is Aki. This might be a bit unexpected. After all, he's the guy who's always cool and collected, right? When we first see him, he stands straight, with perfect posture, while Denji slouches beside him. He obeys Makima's orders without question. He looks like the responsible one, the contrast to Denji's recklessness. On first impression, Aki seems like the classic stoic mentor figure, the man who always keeps everything under control. But Fujimoto being Fujimoto, that impression only lasts for like 30 seconds. The moment they're alone, Aki drags Denji into an alley and beats the shit out of him. It's brutal, sudden, and more importantly, emotional. You can almost feel the frustration behind every punch, as if Aki isn't just hitting Denji, but the world itself. This is where the explosion factor reveals itself. On the surface, Aki is a disciplined, rule-following professional, but underneath there's this reservoir of grief and rage just waiting for an excuse to erupt. He's not a calm man, he's a man pretending to be calm. He's a landmine. The order he clings to is the only thing keeping him from collapsing into the same chaos that defines Denji. In this first scene, Fujimoto lets that mask slip in the most physical, undeniable way possible. It's not just violence for shock value either, it's character through contrast. Aki's politeness instantly flips into hostility, a reversal that both surprises and defines him. Audiences love reversals because they feel like revelations. You think you know who someone is, and then boom, they transform before your eyes. That's what an explosion is, a transformation from stillness to chaos, from composure to emotion. What makes Aki's introduction so effective is that it's purely action-based as well. There's no exposition dump about his tragic past, no inner monologue explaining why he's angry, just a cigarette, a sigh, and a beating. It's storytelling stripped to its essence. Behavior equals personality. Every motion he makes, the way he lectures Denji, the casual cruelty of his words, it all tells us more than what exposition ever could. And the irony is, this explosive first scene doesn't destroy his image as the calm one. It builds on it. We now believe that he's someone who needs to maintain control because we've seen what happens when he loses it. That outburst gives weight to his later restraint. Every time he sighs, every time he lights a cigarette, we remember the version of him that punched Denji in the face. It's a small explosion that casts a long shadow. When Denji finally fights back, kicking Aki in the nuts, it's both hilarious and symbolic. It shatters Aki's image of superiority. Denji, the embodiment of raw impulse and chaos, intrudes on Aki's carefully ordered world. He's the spark that exposes the gunpowder, and that dynamic defines their relationship going forward, order versus chaos, ice versus fire. What's genius is that this first clash foreshadows Aki's entire arc. His life is one long attempt to keep control in a universe that devours control. Every rule he follows, every sacrifice he makes, every emotion he suppresses, it all builds toward another far more tragic explosion later in the story. That's the beauty of his introduction. It doesn't just show who he is, it plants the seed of who he will become. As opposed to Aki, Power's explosion is immediate. From the moment she appears, she's laughing, shouting, gesturing like crazy. Her design does half the work before she even opens her mouth. The horns, the sharp teeth, the crimson eyes, every part of her visual language screams uncontrollable. She's not introduced to be doing something mundane or logical, she's introduced being something only Power could do, strutting through life with delusional confidence and zero self-awareness. She's the living embodiment of the id, the unfiltered drive that hides beneath everyone's civilized surface. When Power's on screen, instinct replaces reason. She's the animal that the world pretends not to be. And within her very first moments, we learn everything essential about her. She lies to get what she wants. Like a missile, she charges into battle without a plan. She quite literally bathes in blood and laughs about it. She's the blood devil, sure, but more importantly, she's a feral spirit pretending to be human. Her actions are impulsive, dramatic, and exaggerated, and they all orbit the same truth. Power doesn't know how to be anything other than herself. While Aki contrasts Denji, Power amplifies him. Together, they form a volatile mixture of stupidity and spontaneity. Instead of sharing one brain cell, they basically cancel each other out. They are collectively chaos incarnates, and that's what makes her introduction so explosive. But if that was all there was, a loud, impulsive caricature, she wouldn't be nearly as memorable. Fujimoto gives an essential layer of contrast, and it's that contrast that gives meaning to the noise. Beneath Power's narcissism, there's a faint trace of humanity, an almost childish vulnerability that sneaks up on the audience. We see it in the Bat Devil arc. For the first time, Power's not screaming about blood or glory. She's distraught over a cat, the one creature she genuinely cares about. It's a small, almost absurd detail, but it changes everything. Suddenly, she's not just the blood devil, she's a being capable of love, however strange or selfish that love may be. Her care for the cat gives her emotions emotional context. When she betrays Denji to save the cat, it doesn't feel like a villainous twist, it feels painfully human. This is where Power's explosion factor deepens. The audience is forced to reconcile two seemingly incompatible truths. She's a liar and a killer, but she's also capable of tenderness. That contradiction is what makes her fascinating. Fujimoto never lets her be one-dimensional. Even her selfishness is recontextualized as a survival instinct, a remnant of the animal world she comes from. And over time, these human impulses grow. Power goes from loving only her cat to forming genuine bonds with Denji and, eventually, Aki. She learns affection and empathy through shared suffering. Her unhinged introduction sets the stage for that evolution. When she first appears, she's nothing but noise. But through that noise, we start to hear the faint outline of a heart. For the third example, what better way to embody the explosion factor than a character who quite literally explodes? Reze's introduction couldn't be further from Power's chaotic entrance or Aki's restrained violence. Her first scene is quiet, friendly, disarming. She appears during a rainstorm, meeting Denji by chance as they both take shelter in a phone booth. The world outside is cold and gray, but inside that cramped space, there's a bit of warmth, a fleeting sense of connection. When she laughs at Denji's clumsy flower trick and invites him to the cafe where she works, the tone is almost tender. It's awkward in that unmistakably human way, something we rarely see in Chainsaw Man's brutal world. In a vacuum, this meaning feels small, almost unimportant, but that's the genius of it. In the context of the story, it's completely unprecedented. Denji has just gone on a date with Makima, his dream girl, the one he's certain he loves, and yet, suddenly, here's somebody new. Someone who doesn't manipulate him. Someone who seems genuinely interested in who he is, not what he can do. Their first few moments together are intimate in a way that feels honest. It doesn't seem explosive at all, and that's why it works. Reze's introduction is the opposite of an explosion on the surface. It's quiet tension, a slow burn. The rain, the shared space, the gentle tone, it all creates the illusion of safety. But safety in Chainsaw Man is always temporary. Her tenderness is diffuse, lit from the moment she smiles. It burns slowly, almost imperceptibly until it reaches the gunpowder. That's what makes Reze fascinating. She's both the most human and most dangerous introduction in the series. We sense that something is off. No one this kind, this conveniently placed, can be what they seem, but Fujimoto makes us want to believe her, and the audience shares Denji's confusion. Is she sincere? Is this real? Why hasn't the bomb gone off yet? Her entire character is built on that contradiction, genuine emotion wrapped around deception. She's a trained killer pretending to be a girl in love, yet somewhere along the way, the pretense becomes real. That's the tragedy. The closer she gets to Denji, the more unstable she becomes because of the emotions she can't control. Everything comes to a head during the festival. The fireworks light the sky, a mirror of the coming explosion, and Reze finally confesses. She admits she loves Denji. She wants to run away with him, abandon everything. For a moment the fuse burns bright and beautiful, but Denji rejects her. There's another girl, another dream he's still chasing. That rejection is the spark that hits the powder. Reze, who spent her entire introduction feigning control, finally breaks. She pulls the pin and explodes, not necessarily out of malice, but out of heartbreak. When she finally goes off, it's not just physical destruction, it's emotional devastation. When all is said and done, a good character introduction isn't about the first line they say. It's about the first truth they reveal. The explosion factor isn't simply about shocking the audience or grabbing their attention. It's about peeling back the surface to expose something raw and unmistakably human underneath. Every great introduction holds a moment when a character's mask cracks, even just a little, and we glimpse what's buried beneath. That glimpse is the explosion. In Chainsaw Man, Tatsuki Fujimoto achieves this with terrifying precision. He doesn't rely on exposition or archetype. He builds tension between who a character appears to be and who they truly are, and he lets that tension detonate. Each introduction is a psychological event disguised as action, comedy, or a romance. Aki's explosion burns inward. His emotions smolder beneath the surface, hidden behind discipline and grief until they finally consume him. Power's explosion is outward. It's loud, messy, and immediate, a chaotic burst of life that fills every panel. And Reze's explosion, she waits. She hides the fuse behind a smile, drawing us closer and closer until the moment it ignites and destroys everything. Together, these three characters form a cycle of emotional volatility, repression, expression, and destruction. They show us that an introduction isn't just a meeting, it's a transformation. When a character appears in Fujimoto's world, they don't join the story, they change it. Their presence reshapes the emotional gravity of the narrative, leaving craters where once there was calm. That's the true brilliance of Fujimoto's character writing. He understands that every person is a contradiction waiting to explode. The best introductions don't simply tell us who someone is, they challenge us to keep watching, to see when and how that person will burst open. The moment the facade breaks, when emotion floods out faster than words can contain it, that's where the truth lives. And in Chainsaw Man, every explosion, no matter how violent or beautiful, reminds us of one thing. The most compelling introductions aren't the ones where someone enters quietly. The most compelling character introductions arrive like a shockwave, leaving the world forever changed.